and welcome to my channel. My name is Brianne Beebe. I'm a high school math teacher, and as we start the next school year, I will be heading into my 7th year of teaching. So let's talk work-life balance. This is especially hard for teachers. How many of you had unrealistic expectations when you were becoming a teacher? I know I did. I worked retail right before I started teaching, and I remember just always seeing people having their nights and weekends off while I was working, and it frustrated me to no end. And I was always thinking, at least when I'm teaching, I'll have my nights and weekends free. Let's all take a moment to laugh at that. So the reality is that teaching is a more than full-time job. You do your regular stuff in the classroom that you have to do every day, and then you go home, and quite often you have to take work home with you. So I'd say for the first 3 years that I was teaching, I just kind of dealt with it and thought, you know, this is just part of the job. This is what being a teacher is really like. Then I got to my 4th year, and I suffered from teacher burnout that year for a multitude of reasons, which if you want to know more about that, I'll link the video below. But eventually I got to the point where it's like, I cannot live like this. Something needed to change, and I had to do something differently. So I think it was about halfway through my 5th year that I started to feel like I was finally starting to achieve some sort of work-life balance, and I attribute this largely to the lesson planning routine that I devised. And I did this with the help of listening to Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers podcast. So figuring that out helped me tremendously, and then I joined the 40-Hour Teachers Workweek Club, which helped a little bit more, but in different ways. So I feel like I'm in a good place with the work that I do and how I take work home and everything. To be honest, I'm making this video a little bit for my own self-interest, just because I'm about to have a baby, so everything's going to be very different for me for this next school year, and I just want to be able to remind myself how I did it this first time around, so that when I need to come up with a new routine and change things, I have like the confidence to go ahead and do that for a second time. So I'd say that there's 3 things that I do to achieve a work-life balance, and I'm going to share them with you, and feel free to think about how it would work for you, or if it wouldn't work for you, or whatever it is that you may have to do differently, and devise a plan that will work for you. So I'd say that the first thing is decide what kind of work you're going to do at home. Overall, my goal is to do as much work as possible in school during the school day so that I'm not taking work home. I feel like there's 2 tasks that teachers routinely tackle at home: planning and grading. So for me, I prefer to plan. So I do my planning at home. It's something that I enjoy. It's one of my favorite parts of teaching because it allows me to be creative, and I just have fun with planning. So I do all of my planning at home unless I was able to find time to do it at school. So when I'm looking at the things that I need to get done for the day, if it's a planning task, I make that the last thing on the list so that if I cannot get to it while I'm in school, I am able to do it at home. With grading, I don't enjoy doing it as much at home. For some reason, when I'm in school and I'm grading, I feel like I'm just in the zone and I grade much more efficiently. When I'm home, that's when I'm susceptible to, let's see what's on TV or YouTube. Let me get all comfy and relax, and then I'm all comfy and relaxed and realize I need to get up and get something. So I just much prefer grading at school, sitting up at my desk and getting it over with there. This year, my prep periods were spread out pretty nicely, and I had a study hall, so I was able to do all of my grading during school for probably like 95% of the school year. The only thing that I ever really took home was projects, because that is so much to grade. So I know I had to grade projects at home at some point, but as much as I can get grading done in school, I will. The other thing is that when it comes to tests, my students would routinely finish early before the end of the period. So I would start grading them during class and kind of bribe the students a little bit that, you know, as long as I don't have to keep looking up because you guys are doing something you're not supposed to be, I can grade these a lot faster. P.S. Students love it when you grade their stuff right away. Depending on what it was that I was grading, if it was something that was like multiple choice or matching where it was very easy to see what the answers were to grade, I would even do that while circulating if I had tests or quizzes turned into me early. The second thing that I do at school to make sure that I maximize my time there so that I'm not bringing work home is I plan out what I'm doing during my preps for each day. I'm a big fan of to-do lists. I like to bounce back and forth between using a planner and using the sheet that I have from the 40-hour teacher workweek club, which I wish I could share because it's fantastic, but I'm prohibited from doing that. So if I'm using my planner, for example, I'll open up to the page that shows me the full week at a glance, and anything that I know I need to get done during school, I will write in my to-do list. I think the key here is to, one, prioritize, make sure you get the most important things done first, and two, not to overwhelm yourself. There should be a few key things that are important that you need to get done during that time. If you're able to get those things done and tackle something else, that's fantastic, and that's where prioritizing comes in too. But just making sure that you're focused on what really needs to get done, I think, is the key. When I planned out my preps, though, I also took into consideration what kind of prep I was going to have. My morning preps, I was able to stay in my classroom and just have uninterrupted time. So I would close my door, turn off the lights, stay in my classroom as much as possible during that prep period and get a lot done that way because I wasn't spending time traveling. For my afternoon prep, however, I had to leave my room because there was another class in there. Not that I had to. The teacher that comes in would have been happy to let me stay, which I did on a few occasions throughout the school year. But for the most part, I feel like I, as a teacher, would be a lot more comfortable if I had to come into someone else's room and they left. So I would typically leave and I'd have a bag packed of whatever I was planning on working on for that prep. And also I would save this prep for running errands. So if I had to walk something down to the office or submit work for students in ISS or OSS, this was the time that I did that. And I'd say the last thing that you could do to work on achieving work-life balance is leverage time that you can add to the day. And here I'm talking about either going in early or staying late. So to my knowledge, and feel free to correct me in the comments if you have a different situation, because I'm always interested in hearing about how things are done differently at different schools and in different places. But every school that I know of, the school day is like 6.5 to 7 hours long of the actual instructional school day from first period to the end of last period. I am contractually obligated to be at my school 10 minutes before they start letting students come from the lobby to first period. So it's actually like 20 minutes before school would begin. I need to be there. Our contract says nothing about how late we have to stay after school. So once the dismissal bell rings, we are allowed to leave. I've been to schools where there was like a 20-minute period that you had to stay in case students needed help because they didn't have a formal after-school program like my school does. So if you're going to choose to either come in early or stay late, don't do both. Don't do that to yourself. You need a break. Think about what works best for you. When do you have the most energy? Personally, I'm a morning person. I'm not a deal with the people in the morning person, but I'm like a morning person. I can get up and wake myself up pretty quickly and basically get to work as soon as I'm able to get out the door. So contractually, we have to be at our school by 7:55. That's going to change for next year. I'm so excited. They moved the whole schedule up by like 20 minutes. It makes a big difference to me. Anyway, so I have to be at school at 7:55. I aim to arrive at around 7 o'clock, between 7 o'clock and 7:10. This gives me about an hour of uninterrupted quiet time where I can get work done. Unless colleagues stop by to chat, which happens occasionally. Even if I try to close and lock my door and turn off my lights like I'm not there. Like if you've ever watched my vlogs, you might notice in the morning it's dark in my room. It's because I have the lights off and I'm kind of hiding out trying to get stuff done. So I still have colleagues that will knock on my door, and usually it's for something important, so I'm just like, okay, I'll deal with it. But I have this time where I can do whatever I need to do to set up for the day or to get started on my tasks. This is also the time of the day that I'm least likely to be interrupted because, like I said, occasionally I have colleagues stop by, but there's no students in the building, so I'm able to work without interruption. Because even when I have that morning prep that I referenced earlier, I will still have students come knocking on my door needing something. When it comes to staying after school, I did after school program. So during that time, I was helping students, tutoring them. A lot of the time though, students would show up just because they didn't want to go home. So they weren't even there for tutoring, which was really annoying, but I got paid either way and there's really nothing I could do about it. So I was able to leverage that time and get more stuff done while I was at school. But typically I'd stay after school maybe 10 or 15 minutes, not anything crazy, just to make sure I was set up for the next day. That way when I came in the next morning, I wasn't having to scramble and get things ready for the day unless something happened the day before, like if I had a doctor's appointment and had to leave right away. So I was able to focus on something else, something that needed to actually get done. So typically when school dismisses, I would stay 10, maybe 15 minutes, maybe half an hour, depending on how much time I had and what needed to get done. So when it comes to after school, it's not that I won't stay after, it's just that I stay for a limited amount of time. Once school dismisses, there's buses and cars and everything everywhere, so I kind of like to let the traffic clear out before leaving anyway. And in this time, I would make sure that my boards were ready for the next day, that I had everything out and ready for the next day that I needed supply-wise. If anything needed to be cleaned up, I would take care of that then. Oftentimes, I had to do a little bit of grading after school because I had a class that last period. And if they had an assessment of some sort, I'd have to get that graded and prefer to do it in school, like I said before. So I either chose to stay after school to complete the grading, or I would choose to not grade it until the next morning when I came in early. But this year I was home after school much earlier than I had been in the past, and that gave me a lot more time to spend with my husband, to make dinner, and to sit on the couch and watch TV because I was pregnant this year and it was a struggle. So those were the key decisions and changes that I made to achieve a work-life balance that I felt much happier with this past year. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments, or if you have any other advice or tips for other teachers, leave those in the comments as well. And as always, thanks for watching.